So this is being recorded for you guys, so that you can go back and reference it if you need to. Really, I just wanted to go over some of the basics of Dotloop for you guys, some tips and tricks to make your life easier, and some of the folders that myself and Beth, who is on, and Sammy, who I don't see is on, but she might be on as well. But they've both worked really hard to get all these folders set up and templates so that we make it as easy as possible for you guys. So I'm going to share my screen. And if you guys have any questions throughout, just unmute yourself and speak up, because I want to answer any questions that you guys have. Okay, so can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so we're going to start with the very bare minimum basics, and that's starting a loop. So this is what you're going to see when you first log in. You'll see, you may or may not see your loops. All you have to do is click add a loop. It'll ask for the property address or the MLS. You guys can organize this however you want to. That's the beauty of Dotloop. You don't have to put it as an address. You can name this whatever you want. So I'm just going to start a loop that says Perry Group Dotloop Training. And then you can continue. Continue. You can skip these steps. You can upload a photo only if you want to. I skipped that step too. And that's all it takes to create a loop. So all of a sudden you've got a loop, which if you use DocuSign, it's like a room. So let's take a look. Obviously there's nothing in here yet. This is your bare bone minimum. This is all you've got so far. So you can select the transaction type. And then if you click on view details, you can add all of that normal information that you would need throughout the transaction. So obviously, first and foremost, you're going to want to add your people. So your buyer, your seller. If you have an assistant, you can add them here. Anybody like that. So I'll add myself as a buyer. Okay, so there's my name, my email, and then the role buyer. That's again, the bare minimum that you need to add a person, but you can also add their address, you know, their phone number, any other information that you want to keep track of who they are and how to get a hold of them.
Leanne, quick question. Going back to the creation of loops, because I ask you this all the time and I can never remember the answer. So a lot of us, like, let's say if Dean's my client, Dean the machine over here, I should be getting a BBA before I submit an offer, but we probably won't, win that one offer on that one property.
Yeah.
It might take a couple. So what is the best way for you? Like, should I just be like, where would I house that BBA if I've offered on 7 properties with them? Am I creating several different loops with them? Or do I just like create Anderson, Dean, and then just put every offer as like a subfolder in the loop? Like, how do we do that? What's the best way?
So if it were me, I would put it in one loop. I would name the loop, Dean Anderson. And once we get an accepted offer, we can go back and rename the loop and add the address. So like, I know Julie, she has all of her loops dedicated to the person rather than the property. So if she has a buyer seller, then it's all in one loop, easy to see. And some people just do the property address, and that's fine. That's the beauty of Dotloop, is that you kind of get to organize it however is best for you. Your TC will just kind of come in on their side and we'll find it. If it exists, we'll find it. And if we can't find it, we'll ask you. Oops.
Cool. Thank you.
So yeah, of course. So in Dotloop, you have this very basic, like you have your templates, you can add a PDF. You can also add folders. So in Chris's example, if you're offering on several houses, so there's 1, 2, 3 main, and then you can go down here, you can rename this folder First Street. So you can always adjust these things. You can rename them. You can have as many folders as you want. You can also archive your folders if you go through and say, oh, this is like a lot of information. I don't want to see all this stuff. You know, we lost the offer on First Street. You can take this, click these 3 little dots and archive the whole folder. And archiving is a little bit different than deleting because Dotloop doesn't let anything go away for good. Archive it is mostly just hiding it. You're just getting rid of it, getting it out of sight, out of mind. You can click show archive to see the rest if you need to. Sorry, Chris, what was that?
We can't ever delete documents anyways, because technically a folder is supposed to have like every offer, everything they've ever signed needs to be somewhere that they like we can access, right? From a brokerage standpoint.
Yes. Yeah, okay. Everything you ever have. And that's why it's set up that way through Dotloop, is they don't want you to be able to just completely delete anything. And just like you can archive a folder if you just want to hide it and get it out of sight, out of mind, you can do it with individual documents as well. So I'll show you how to do that too. Okay. So you can select purchase, listing for sale, leases. You can also select the status. None of this is necessarily important to us. These are just tools to help you guys keep organized. So you can add pre-offer, under contract, sold. You can archive the entire loop, which a lot of people do. So once it's sold, you can again archive the entire loop so that it's out of sight, out of mind. So let's say we've got a buyer, they're offering on 123 Main Street, and we need to get everything going. So the offer, the buyer broker, all of that. We're going to go to templates. And this is the piece that the TC team has kind of built out for you guys. We're going to go to buying documents. And this basically replicates SkySlope for you. So these are all of the documents that SkySlope says are kind of required to close the file. We also have some optional things in there. So a blank addendum so that you can add whatever you want. The earnest money with title addendum if you need it. Escrow instructions if you need it. Due diligence addendum. We've added some of those optional documents as well, just for ease and to make it easy to access. So you have the option, of course, you can select all of them and import everything at once and then archive the stuff that you don't need. Or if you want to, you can also go through and say, okay, I need the MLS printout. I need the earnest money receipt. I'll need the contract. Oh, I need an addendum. We don't need escrow instructions, so I'll just skip over that. And you can go through and select everything individually. Whatever works best for you. So I'm just going to select everything and click copy. Click OK. And then all of that stuff is in the loop, ready to go. So any questions on how I did that? Okay. Now, when I've imported everything, you'll see a couple of them are kind of like grayed out. And a lot more of them are just the plain black. So these gray ones, they're called placeholders. And what it is just a reminder for you guys that we need that document. So if you click on it, obviously it's not an actual document. I can't open the MLS printout. What I can do is archive it, I can rename it. Let me, it won't let me do it. So I'm just going to add an earnest money receipt. So I'm just clicking and dragging this to earnest money receipt. Oh, come on. You worked earlier. Okay, so the document was moved. And now you can see that earnest money receipt is no longer gray, it's black. And that's because I went through and replaced it. You can also drag and drop it. I use Google Chrome a lot and drag and drop everything. So if you have it downloaded, it should show up down here and you can just drag and drop it. It's called a placeholder, right? So it's just holding the place until it comes in. And it's just a reminder for you guys that, hey, we do need this document. So now if I click on it, it pulls up an earnest money receipt for me. And once your TC gets that, we will upload it to Dotloop, we'll upload it to SkySlope. You know, we'll upload it everywhere we possibly can for you. But this is just like a nice little reminder that we do need that document. Same with the disclosures, lead-based paint disclosure. So any questions on how that works?
Yeah, since we switched over to Real, can you remind me what like documents they need that we might not have been used to from like EXP or KW?
Yeah, and that's what this folder is it's a list of everything that they require, plus a couple extra addendums just in case you need them. So they need the MLS, earnest money receipt, all those basic documents, contract and addendums, disclosures. And then these 5 are like, let me highlight them. These 5 are the ones that they need on every single one. So buyer due diligence, wire fraud, the 4-year protection, those are things that we've always gotten. The mold and meth disclosure is a new one. And then of course your buyer broker agreement.
Sweet. Do they,
can you
remind me, do they have an addendum that needs to be signed for the BBAs?
No. Nope. There isn't an addendum that needs to be signed for the buyer broker. I am noticing that it's not in this folder for you guys in case you need it. So we can add that in, but there's not a specific buyer broker addendum. There's no affiliated business disclosure that they need, anything like that.
Cool.
Hey, Leanne, I missed the beginning part because I was outside. Did you want, I missed the part where, did you want these Dotloop loops to be per client or per property?
Totally up to you.
Okay, so you don't, doesn't, the TCs don't prefer a certain way?
No, I mean, we, once it goes under contract, we will find it. We'll search for the property address. If we can't find it there, we'll search for the client name.
Okay.
If we still can't find it, then we'll reach out to you and just make sure like it's not hiding under some different name.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Worst comes to worst, if you haven't started a loop for some reason, let's say you have an old school client who has been signing everything in person, we'll start a loop. Worst case scenario, and we can make sure it's in your profile so that you can easily access it as well.
Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, we know like we're giving you tips and tricks, but we want you guys to be able to organize this however's best for you as well. So
As OCD people be OCD.
yeah, some people are, some people aren't. Everyone has their own method of organization, and we just want you guys to have the tools to organize it however you need to. We'll just kind of come in at the end and say, okay, this is how they organize it, and we're just going to leave it at that, and that's fine.
Hey, Leanne, in the chat, Amanda had a question. I'm not used to the meth and mold because that's newer.
Yeah.
They're not requiring that on land, right? Because there's no meth or mold to test. Like Real, like to sign off, because we don't get paid until Real signs off on it. Like they're not going to say like, hey, this is a land deal. We need this signed by the buyer from Ethelmold, or are they?
That's a good question. I've not encountered that yet. But it is possible for us to just leave a note for them and say, hey, this is a land deal. That way it's not a required document. So my gut tells me no, it won't be required on a land deal.
So basically someone close a land deal and let us know what Real says.
Yeah, please. And it's possible that your TC may have sent it anyway, not realizing that this is a land deal, but so we may get it signed anyway, and then it won't be an issue, but okay. So let's go into some of these templates and documents just to see what they look like. So let's say you're writing up an offer. I'll get the buyer broker too. So you don't have to select just one document to go into. You can go check mark whatever documents you want to open and send at the same time. So if it's a brand new offer for a brand new client, bare minimum, the buyer broker, the contract, and the earnest money with title addendum. And let's say you're writing an appraisal clause or escalation clause or something like that, then you can add this addendum as well. Again, this is just the plain blank addendum so that you can add anything you need to. We'll just go to the top and select open. Okay. So when you open this, it will give you the option to autofill some stuff. So I already put myself in as a buyer in this loop. So it's showing me as the buyer. The buying agent, I happen to be in Jack's profile, so that's who we're going to show. And then you can type in the property address. The state. You can add this stuff, but you can also just go through the actual contract and make sure to enter all of that in. So up to you how you want to do that. Okay, so this is where you'll just kind of go through 27th day, tab, April, tab, 2022. And you'll just start going through and filling out all of that information. I know because of the way that the MLS imports information and the way Dotloop imports information, a lot of people prefer to fill out their contract, just the rep C on the MLS so that it brings in. So the brokerage, the license numbers, I can't tell you my license number off the top of my head. I have no clue. So you can, doing it on the MLS imports some of that information, like the inclusions, the exclusions, imports that information so that it's automatically just part of the contract. So feel free to do that as well. Don't feel like you have to fill out the contract on Dotloop if it's going to be easier for you to do it on the MLS.
Hey, Leanne.
Yeah.
I'm one of the ones that does it on the MLS. Is there a way to get Dotloop to auto assign all the initial and signature boxes though when you bring it over?
No, but there is a way to speed it up. So I'll show you that as well.
Perfect.
We can make it really fast for you. There are tricks. So I'll show you that. So this has all of those boxes already in there, just like it would on the MLS if you do want to fill it out on Dotloop. All your dates, etc. Okay. So here's that blank addendum. So we'll make this number 1, addendum. Offer reference date is today. And then you can just click on these lines, edit text, and then just start typing. So this is another thing that I wanted to show you guys. So we have started entering clauses for you guys. This is just to get that verbiage that you might use a lot. And then you don't have to wait and ask a TC or put it out on Slack. It's just like easy access for you guys. So let's say you want to do an appraisal guarantee. Just start typing an appraisal and it will come up for you. And this is obviously just one version of the appraisal guarantee that we've seen. We will be adding in more as we see them and as we get those questions of, oh, how would I write this as part of the contract? So it's easy verbiage for you guys, if that makes sense. Any questions on how to do that?
Leanne, could you put or make a priority escalation clauses for the correct verbiage? Because I've seen a lot of contracts that if I was on the other side, I would exploit your language pretty easily.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and we'll do different versions as well as we see them. So like, I know there's like at least 5 different versions of an escalation clause that you can use, and everyone prefers their own. So we will kind of add those in as we see them to the clauses. That way you can kind of go through and pick which one is going to work best for you, which one you like more, which verbiage you want, etc.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely be adding the escalation clause for you.
Hey, Leanne, I have a question regarding space. So the reason why I do like using Utah Real Estate Site is because when you type in, it expands the lines. And I noticed on Dotloop, when I, like, for example, on this addendum, if I had an appraisal gap escalation clause, hard earnest money, as well as, seller's closing costs, and that is like not enough to fill. Is there a way to get this addendum to expand and get more lines, or do we have to do that on the Utah Real Estate Site?
If it's going to be huge, I mean, let's see how far this will expand here. Oh, and it will only let us add the one clause. So it will kind of put it on separate lines for you. So if that's not enough room, then definitely go to Utah Real Estate and fill it out there for sure. Because I've seen addendums where it gets 3 pages long and it's all on one addendum, and that's totally fine. But if you do need more space than what's given here, then go ahead and go to Utah Real Estate. I'll try and figure out a workaround in the meantime.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
Hey, Leanne, I might have missed this. I just didn't see it on the screen. Do you guys also have one for waiving due diligence?
Not yet, but we'll add it. And again, the clauses that are available, like, we will keep expanding them and adding more as we see them and as we get those questions of, how do I type out this verbiage? When we see those, we'll add those to the clauses for you. That way it's easily accessible.
Scott, to clarify though, are you like, what language are you looking for? Like, because you would use the rep sheet to waive the due diligence. Would you just, in the addendum, are you still wanting to specify like the buyer still reserves the right to have an inspection? They're just not asking for repairs to make sure that they still let you in the house to look at the inspection? Or I just want to make sure like what language you're using.
Yeah, very situationally dependent, Chris. It's hard to answer that directly. That's definitely an option. I don't know. I mean, like you said, it can be addressed in the regular rep C. I'm just curious if there's a better language that you can add an addendum, but I think you're right. It's probably going to be dependent on if they still want to get inspection or just waiving the due diligence, timeline. I just want to ask that question.
Cool. Yeah, I can connect with like Michael and people on our leadership team and probably the TCs and come up with like somewhere that y'all can access a resource of just different language to use for different situations. That way, of like at least language that is like tried and true, so that you're not writing your own. Because for example, like most of y'all write earnest money to go hard immediately upon acceptance, but you don't specify anything except in the case of seller's default. So how you wrote your addendum is if they default, they still get your 20 grand. And so it's just like little tips like that, because you have to be really specific on the wording you use. But
and I'm going to just add in there that going hard is not the correct language. It should be shall be non-refundable,
for sure.
and that the buyers and sellers agree to that. So I agree with you, Chris. I think that the wording of it needs to be dialed in. I see a ton of really shoddy wording when I do listings with these offers that come over, and I can poke holes in the contract, and that's what we want to avoid.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Julie. Like, again, the clauses, like that's gonna be an ongoing process. Like as we see those situations, or as we get notes from other agents that are more experienced that say, I don't love this verbiage for this reason. Like, can we change it so that nobody else is using that verbiage too? And we'll make those changes in Dotloop. We can do it in 2 seconds flat. And then if you import that information again, then you're not using language that is potentially shoddy.
So what I'm hearing though is having a resource, whether partly in Dotloop or even just somewhere else, that you know exactly what language we recommend using for each situation would be helpful.
Yeah, exactly. This is going to be like the
doing our
very
regularly scheduled programming for Dotloop.
Okay, so that's how you use the clauses with this addendum. Again, there are only a few in there right now, but we will continue adding and adjusting and getting feedback so that we can make it the best possible resource for you guys. All right, so obviously deposit of earnest money. If y'all aren't getting this and you're depositing earnest money with title, you're putting your buyer at risk. So just remember that. Sidebar, side note. Exclusive buyer broker agreement. So this is obviously something we need right away. We have gotten mixed feedback on whether or not we add the $495 here or leave it blank for you guys. Because you guys have very particular clients. You also have clients that don't look at what they're signing. They just trust you and they sign it. And we don't want a situation where we have the $495 in and then you send it to a client and they get ticked off. We also don't want you to forget about it. So if you have specific opinions, reach out to me and let me know so that we can figure out the best course of action for you guys.
Where would it be if it wasn't there? Just like a separate addendum? Is that what you would do?
Yeah, so if you don't add the brokerage fee into the buyer broker and you intend to charge it, then we would have to then do an addendum to the buyer broker that says client agrees to pay $495 fee in addition to the commissions paid. So in order to charge that fee, we have to have it in writing that we're charging it. We can always charge less. So if you decide halfway through the transaction that you don't feel like charging this client the $495 fee, you want to charge less, or you don't want to charge it at all, we can always charge less. But I know we have very particular clients sometimes who absolutely refuse to pay it and they don't want to see it anywhere in the contract. And the last thing we want to do is upset your clients too. So.
Can I add something, Leanne?
Yeah, of course.
Also, if you say you submit the contract and you put that $495 on like TPG stats when you submit it. And I know, for example, like Madison's team at Metro really pays attention to that email and notices that $495 fee. But then at some point during the transaction, if you have negotiated with your buyers that you're not going to actually charge them, you have to let us know to let Metro know, or you have to let Metro know and like copy us, because if they collect that money from them at settlement and they've never signed for it, or or they did sign for it and they have, what am I trying to say? If they've signed for it and they paid it at settlement, but you may not know that they've actually paid for it, but you've negotiated with them that they're not actually having to pay for it. So if it's been accounted for in the final funds, like it's been paid for. Does that make sense? And we have to like note that.
Yeah. We have to make separate notes on our end because it's basically separate commission. So on the disbursement authorizations at the end of the transaction, we have to either add that in or account for you paying for it on each transaction. And that's all reflected in the disbursement authorization. So anytime that doesn't line up, then we have issues from somewhere. So if it changes, like Beth said, just let us know. We can let title know. You can always copy title and copy us on the same email. Like however you want to let us know, just tell us. We can't fix what we don't know about though. And again, we can always charge less than what they agree to, but we cannot charge the fee if they don't agree to it.
Yeah. So going back to that question, Leanne, don't auto populate 495 in there because I think too many agents either split it or they charge different. I know several agents charge higher on our team. And if you can do that confidently, kudos to you. So every one of us has the competency when we're filling out this to put an amount in. And if you don't, then know that you lost $495 of your commission, or you can clarify it with an addendum later. But yeah, don't auto populate. There's too many variables for that situation. Like we should be able to hit 495 while we're typing that.
And if we do see a disconnect, like if we see that you've submitted it to TPG stats and you said that you're going to charge the client the fee, but this is blank, then we'll connect with you and be like, hey, we can't charge the fee. Do you want us to do a buyer broker addendum, or do you just want to cover the fee? And we'll try and work with you and connect with you. We're not just going to say, oh, well, they didn't put it on there, so we're just going to let them pay for it. We're going to tell you like, hey, there's something wonky. Like, how do you want us to fix it? Because again, we know it depends on your client. Okay, so once this is all auto-filled and saved, obviously all of these templates already have the initials auto-populated. It automatically assigns it to the buyer. For an exclusive right to sell, it will automatically assign it to the seller. It just depends on what template you're pulling in. So once you're done with that, obviously I have 4 templates selected and they're all open. So I can share all of these at one time. And then your buyer will get one email. They can go through, sign all of them at once, and be done. Because I'm the buyer and I have fields assigned to me, it automatically selects me. You can add more people if you want. You can also add a message saying, this is the contract for 123 Main. Call me with questions. You can also attach the PDF to the email if you want. Anything that they're signing, I don't recommend that necessarily, just because they might just open the PDF and be done. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. It'll ask them to sign it in the email. And then share. And then that's it. So now if we go back to our folder. Yeah.
I have a question about clients that share their email. So I have a buyer, husband and wife share the same email. I don't know how that functions in their life, but they do. So what do we do when both of them are on the contract and both of them need to sign?
That's a tough one. So Dotloop is very particular when it comes to emails, and it knows. It's smart. and it knows like, oh, this person has already signed as under this email. So what you're probably going to need to do is set up 2 separate loops. One for one signature and one for the other signature. It's a giant pain when they're sharing an email. And I've encountered it before and it's hard, but you'll have to probably set up a different loop altogether. And if it still won't let you, call me and I'll set up like a rogue loop under someone else's, under like my own account, and try it that way. It's really, really difficult to have a shared email in Dotloop. And that is the one downfall, but we have it so rarely that it's usually not an issue.
Okay, thank you.
I know, I'm sorry, that's probably not the answer you wanted, Julie, but okay, so let's go through how to add the initials and the signatures real quick. So if you're adding disclosures, that's the biggest one that I see with buyers especially. So instead of templates, we're going to go browse for the PDF. Just add this one. Okay, so again, you can pull up the PDF and then drag it down to the seller property condition disclosure and basically replace it. And then it will rename the document seller property condition disclosure. Obviously, I did not actually upload a seller property condition disclosure. I uploaded a mold and meth disclosure, but this is just for demonstration purposes, so bear with me. Okay, so obviously this document, you have 3 initials plus a signature that needs to be filled out by your buyer. So we're going to add initial. You can change the size if you want to. And then assign. I'm the buyer in this case, so I'm assigning it to myself. And then right down here, there are what I like to call cheat codes. So these are how you copy fields, delete fields. You can save with just a couple clicks. So I have initials set to me. Control-Shift-C. And then if I click off of it, I can Control-Shift-V. And it copies the size, the layout. It automatically assigns it to the buyer for you. So it's a much faster way than having to add the initial field every single time. And let's say I have 2 buyers signing on every page. That's a lot. Disclosures are 7 pages, plus they have signatures. So having to drag and drop initials and assign it to a buyer 14 times is a lot. So you can do it one time, highlight both fields, Control-Shift-C, and then Control-Shift-V, and then you have those initials.
You can copy both at the same time?
Yes.
Oh, I'm an idiot.
This training is worth it just for that piece right there.
I'm telling you.
I
I'm
felt
telling
so
you.
smart when I figured out I could copy one signature like 2 months ago.
Yeah. Even the best of the best need tips.
It was worth waking up for me.
So that's how your TC is able to go so fast with adding initials and signatures to documents. This is why we use templates and we copy paste everything. And again, all of these little codes, if you click on any field, they will show up right down here. That way, if you ever forget, I did when I was first starting out, I would always forget about this tip. So I would always have to look and be like, oh yeah, that's how I do it. I always tried to just click Control C, and then it wouldn't work and I would get mad at it. And then I would realize, oh yeah, I have to click Shift as well. And
Hey, Leanne, can you show that one more time? I missed that.
yeah. So, okay, I have the initials here. You have to add the first one. So let's add a signature. Assign to Leanne. You just select the field, or if you're doing more than one field, you just kind of like click and drag and let this little box show up and select both fields.
Wow. Okay,
And then,
thank you.
and then Control Shift C. And then it shows paste field, Control Shift V. And then it won't automatically drop to wherever you want to. You have to like just move it around and then you click.
Hey, Leanne,
And it just drops where you are.
we're getting off in the weeds here, but since they're side by side right there, can you adjust their placement after they've been pasted or no?
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
You can adjust the size. So like sometimes on disclosures, like people will write and you don't want to put the initials over the writing that they put. So you can adjust where it is. You can move one from one side to the other, adjust the size, whatever you need to. I knew this tip would be mind-blowing for you guys. And yeah, if you need to do more than one, just highlight all of them. And then there they are. And again, they automatically assign to whoever they were assigned to before. And obviously now we have 100 fields on this one-page document. So I can highlight whatever I need to. This little X will remove all those fields so that they're not there anymore. Cool. Okay. If you haven't saved it, it will ask you if you want to save it. I always recommend clicking yes. Let's say, okay, so this is just an example of something that I've seen. So sometimes you have a document, it's already been signed, and you go to try and edit a field. If you try and edit a field on something that has already been signed, it will clear all the signatures. So let's say you didn't mean to do that. You just wanted to fix something. You didn't mean to clear the signatures. And now you're like, oh crap, what do I do now? How do I get that signature back? You can go to More, Document History. Give it a second to pull up, and it'll pull up every version of the document that has existed. So you can view it or you can download it. I typically just download it until I find it because I never know what the view is going to do. So this version would be the one that we went through, added the information, saved it all. So that's version 2. Version 1 was just that plain Jane document, didn't have anything on it before we autofilled anything on it. So you can go back and see what versions have existed before and download them and basically like get your document back with the signatures if you need it.
So you would only use that though if you accidentally edited a field, or like you were on the wrong person's loop and you weren't paying attention and you cleared all their signatures but didn't actually change anything. If you change anything, they have to sign to it.
Yes. This is just if I made an error, tried to adjust something, hit the wrong button, and I need those signatures back. It will download that same version of the document. Okay,
Fill in on that real quick.
yeah.
This might be more of a legal question for anyone out there. Is it okay for us to check the buyer box on all these documents? Because that's one of the ones that get missed the most, I feel like, for my people. And
Oh,
like,
yeah.
if I go in and click it after the fact, obviously it erases their signature, right? If I try to adjust that box.
Yeah, so
So,
yeah, these and brokerages get really particular about this too. So this is something that we see all the time. That the buyer field or the seller signature like box didn't get selected. Even though it's a very clear, like this is who signed, and it says at the top, that's the buyer, they still want to see this box selected. So you can absolutely go ahead and select that for your client. That way they don't miss it. They just have to click through and sign, and it's no sweat off their back. And I recommend doing that, because otherwise, like, it will have them sign, but it won't tell them. It guides them through when documents are being signed. So when they start signing something, it will guide them from this signature down to the next signature, down to the next signature. Unless this box is assigned to them specifically, it will skip over those boxes. So definitely feel free to select that box for them. One more thing I'm thinking of, but it looks like Anthony's raising his hand. Go ahead, Anthony.
Thanks, Leanne. I just had an offer on one of my places, and the buyer's agent like added a whole bunch of checked a whole bunch of boxes. How do you fix that? Because he had like seller and then acceptance, and then he did the like rejection part on an addendum. So he like messed the whole thing up, but we've just signed it, but how do I go about fixing that in the future? And then I can fix that in an addendum later.
So it shouldn't give him the ability to edit that stuff unless you select that they can like fill and sign it. So I would just add the box. And so like if you're filling out the addendum,
I think he was saying the buyer's agent sent him on a listing,
Yeah,
offer over.
Yeah, that's
it,
right,
just
Chris.
Oh.
sucked and acceptance or reject it for the sellers.
I would send that right back to them and say, can you please not? They should not be doing anything on behalf of your seller.
Okay.
So I would send it back to them and say, hey, let's try this again. There were a bunch of boxes checked. One of them said rejected. That's not what we wanted. So we just need to get this corrected. And just outline it for them and say, let's try this again. We can do that for our clients. We can click accepted, rejected, counter offer. We can do that. The other side can't do it for our client.
Yeah, and that's just one thing to know. If you're a listing agent, you will, like, if you have 10 offers on your property, other agents really, really suck at clean offers. And so you want to make sure that if you're interested in their offer, they present you something clear, like clean and clear. Because I have people that'll submit an offer and they'll say in the rep fee, it'll say addendum 1 through 3, and then they don't have any addendums attached, or they have like the wrong addendums, or they have the wrong checkbox, or they miss something, or they don't put license numbers in. And that's when you just reach out to them and say, hey, like, we're interested in your offer, but I need these 3 things to be fixed before we can accept. Going forward, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Okay. I just sent that out for signature. I knew what he meant to do. It was just an accident. So how do you want me to fix that now? Because I apologize. I knew I could fix that later. So
I would go ahead and go back and just say, hey, we just need to clean this up before you get it signed, because otherwise it leaves it open-ended. Like, even though you know what they meant, that doesn't matter. Like, it has to be very, very clear in the contract, and not, well, we know what they meant, and because then they can come back and argue and say, well, no, this is what we marked though. And we don't ever want to put you guys in that situation or your clients.
Okay. Well, this one's already out for signature. So what I'll do is just fix it. Because I've already reached out to him and just say, hey, we need to fix this part. So do you want me to do that via an addendum, just fixing that part? Because it's already out. It's already like halfway signed on this one.
I would,
Go
if
ahead.
it's already out for signature and one of your clients has already signed it, then I would do another addendum. We can,
Okay.
I'll get with you on that,
Okay. Sorry,
how to
Leanne.
specifically do that later. No, you're fine.
I knew we could fix everything with an addendum. So I'm like, oh, we'll just fix it. No big deal.
Yeah,
It
we'll
was an
figure out.
accident.
I'll have to look at exactly what it says and exactly what it looks like, and then we can figure out the verbiage based on
Okay.
what's supposed to be happening.
Okay.
So I'll work through that with you
Thank you
after
so
this
much.
training. Of course.
Yep.
One last thing I wanted to show you guys for the templates. So seller's disclosures. I know like that's one of the longest forms to fill out. And luckily for you guys, it's a template that you can send to your client, your listing clients. The listing, your seller can fill it out in DocuSign. You don't have to have them fill it out in person. And then scan 7 pictures to me. So if you go to listing documents and select the seller property condition disclosure, you just copy that in. And then when you open it, it will fill out the address, our brokerage. Your seller name should be filled out if you have your sellers already added to the loop. But if not, you can add them here. And it already has all those fields attached to it. The yes, no's, the dates, the notes, everything. And then when you save and share, all you have to do is instead of can sign, they can fill and sign. And that gives them the ability to go through, mark everything yes or no. It'll guide them through it. Hopefully they don't miss anything. You know, your TCL will just do a quick glance and make sure everything looks to be filled out. And then once you share that, then it won't just guide them through, oh, sign here, sign here, sign here. It will guide them through, oh, how long have you owned this property? Do you occupy the property? All of these other fields so that they fill it out. So that is almost certainly the easiest way to get seller's disclosures, because then once it's signed and done, you already have the PDF, it's already in your loop. It's ready to be sent to the buyer side and it's done. So just a quick tip for your sellers. Yes, Mona.
Hi. Okay, so what about the residential MLS input form? That's like the worst one of them all.
Oh, yeah, that's the hardest one to get. So let me real quick. I'm just going to show you guys how to get that. So we do have, when you upload that folder for the sellers, we do have a placeholder for the MLS input form. But the easiest way to get that form is actually on your MLS. So if you go to your listings and go to your listing inventory, I'll go to unfinished listings.
You can get it on forms, Leanne. When you click on forms, it's on the side.
You can. So you can get the MLS input form under the forms. I like this version because it's already filled out.
Oh, so you go on the MLS, create a listing, and then fill it all out on the MLS, and then you can print it off just through there?
Yes.
Yeah.
My gosh, that makes my life so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can access it through the forms, but it's the blank form.
Yeah, that's not.
If you do it, and then you have to like copy all of that information that maybe your seller has filled out to this spot anyway. And that's just a giant pain for everybody. So yeah. I would I would do this because number one, you can import some of that other information and then just kind of go through and double check everything at the
Mhm.
listing price, you know, not short sale, all of that other information. Once you have at least most of it filled out, you can print the PDF
Oh my
and
gosh.
it generates the 6-page form for you that is already filled out and done for your client. And then
And
you
this
only have to do it all once.
Sorry, this absolutely has to be signed, the residential input form.
Yeah, that's required
Okay.
for, it's required through Real.
Is it required to be signed before we go live?
I would.
Okay.
More as a CYA for you guys. I don't think Real will pay attention if we forget and sign it afterward.
Mhm.
But you guys, we want to protect you guys. Like, and the best way to do that is to have this signed on the front end. That way they're going through and double checking the information. They can't come back and say, well, that's not the price that I agreed to.
Mm.
They did agree to it before you listed it. And then
Yeah.
you have that physical proof of, I sent them this, it says the list price, they initialed it on this day. So that was their way of agreeing to the list price.
Okay.
And it gives them a chance to read the remarks so that they can't come back later and say, you said something that blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I would 100% fill out as much as you possibly can. Add the remarks. You can add agent remarks. If you do that, it will pull those remarks in right down here.
Mhm.
And then have them double check all that information. That way, when you list it, you know it's right. And you're not having to go back afterward. You're not worried about, you know, Zillow maybe not picking up any changes, that type of thing. Because I know that happens as well sometimes. Like the address is maybe a little bit off and you change it, but it won't update on Zillow for some reason.
Yeah.
Having
Well,
it right that first time is super helpful with that.
thank you, Leanne. That was like, I've been like 5 years, didn't know that at all. That is awesome.
Yes, definitely the single easiest way to get the form. And this is the one that like we can't get for you for that reason. Like we can't get the form because we can't go into your MLS and like, so if you download it, send it to us, we'll send it out for you. Like that's fine. We don't mind. Okay. Anybody else have any questions about Dotloop organization, how it works, anything?
Leanne, when we like, if we're doing a buy side and we add all of these documents, which ones do you want us sending out versus which ones do y'all prefer just to send out?
So the big thing that we try to keep in mind is that anything with negotiations, we try and keep our hands out of for you guys. So the contracts, the addendums, escrow instructions, we try not to, my battery's gonna die. We try and keep our hands out of that unless we have specific directions from you guys saying, hey, we just got this addendum, I'm on the road, I already talked to my buyers about it, can you send it to them to sign? And we can do that for you. We know you guys are out and about literally all the time. You guys have deals going under during vacation. Like we want you to be able to enjoy your vacation. So we won't touch it, but if you get an addendum and you need help sending it, tell us, we'll do it.
Cool.
These 4 right through here, mold and meth for your protection, wire fraud, buyer due diligence. We'll send those out every single time if we see they're not signed. Every single time. Limited agency, if we see that we need that, obviously that should be sent out with your offer. If you're working with another agent from Real, but if we see that it's not done, we'll send that out as well. Does that answer your question, Chris? Thank you. Anyone else? Any questions? Okay. Well, if you guys do think of any questions, always reach out to your TC. We're happy to help. Again, any notes on clauses or what things we might want to consider changing, we're totally open to those things too. So never be afraid to reach out and suggest those things, because we want to make it as seamless and as easy for you guys as we can. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
And you're the best.
Thanks, Leanne.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Leanne.